Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's Fiber Broadband Association webinar. Today's webinar, Win Broadband Subscribers with the Right TV Experience, is presented by Enghouse Networks, joined by video services solution provider Whitepaw. I'm Trish Ehlers, Vice President of Operations at Fiber Broadband Association. Before we begin, I'd like to review a few housekeeping items to ensure you have the best experience. As attendees, you are in listen mode only today. However, we want this to be interactive and we do want to hear from you. So please use the questions tool in the lower left of your screen to share questions you have for the presenters. We will have dedicated time for Q&A following the presentation. We also have several resources with additional information available. These are located in the resources tool in the upper right, which you can download. The webinar will be available on demand 24 to 48 hours following today's live broadcast. You can find the recording on the FBA website under the Events tab. The link will also be provided in a post-webinar email. Finally, at the end of the webinar, you'll be prompted to complete a brief survey. If you take a minute to do that, we would really appreciate your feedback. It allows us to provide content that is relevant and valuable to the fiber broadband community. And now we will move to, we are pleased to be joined today by Mick McCluskey, who is the Vice President of Product Management at Enghouse Networks. Mick will be speaking with Emily Call, the Executive Director of Whitepaw Solutions, about the impact of the TV experience on broadband consumers and how the right experience can help you grow your subscriber base. With that, I will hand things over to Mick. Mick.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Just a quick sort of view. During the presentation today, we're going to focus on a number of topics that we feel are important for FBA members for this audience. I'm going to focus a little bit from the technology provider's perspective. So what are we doing on the technology provider's perspective? And Emily?
Yes, first off, very grateful to be here and be asked by Mick to be part of this FBA webinar. And I am very passionate about video and look forward to bringing the operator perspective of what we're seeing in the industry.
Good. So we're going to try to keep the time to about 35 to 40 minutes in terms of the presentational part of that. And then we will have some questions at the end. The intention is for us to try to share some of the things that we think through either a technology side or an operator side, are some of the challenges associated with bringing TV to broadband providers. Also, some of the ways in which those challenges can be addressed. We do know that many or most of you are active in the broadband space. This is, of course, the Fiber Broadband Association. Many of you are deploying fiber. You may also be deploying other technologies to drive your broadband services for your consumers. But that market is very competitive, particularly in the more built-up areas where there are denser populations of consumers. And in those areas where you have competition, often you're looking for ways to differentiate your service, to create stickiness, to retain, to grow your consumer base. Of course, different operators choose different mechanisms for that. We've seen operators that focus on home security systems. Certainly managed Wi-Fi or in-home Wi-Fi is a key attribute that people are looking to create some stickiness. But TV has been for many years and continues to be a key way in which you can attract and retain subscribers. So we're going to touch on TV today and focus on that. And we're going to focus it on it in three areas. If you are an operator who have been offering TV for a number of years, what are the challenges associated with modernizing your legacy system? If you're an operator who has been devolving TV and offering advertisements on that TV service for a number of years, what's happening in the advertising industry and what are the changes that are going through that you need to pay attention to ensure you retain your advertisement revenue? And we're also going to touch on a group of you on the Fiber Broadband Association who are perhaps more ISPs, digital first, broadband first customers, you've never had TV before, but you're maybe going into markets where TV is important in terms of your penetration rate. So what we're going to do really is talk through those three scenarios and touch on some of the issues and also some of the solutions for those issues.
Okay, go ahead.
Please go ahead.
So I'm going to start and dig in a little bit to the market challengers and the operator realities. And I'm not sharing this to scare you. I'm sharing this to try to build trust and help you understand that I, as an operator, understand what these challenges are. And when we get further into this webinar, the excitement of some of the opportunities that Mick and I have been able to come to fruition to help you overcome some of these. So the reality is, I totally understand there's a love-hate relationship with video, right? So everybody's focused on the broadband, as they should. What used to be a luxury is now a necessity. So really, to be successful, everybody needs broadband and have that internet connectivity. But what it's done is it's left TV systems not getting the same attention as the broadband. And so the service offerings aren't using the technology that is available, and they're not as feature rich as how some consumers, especially the younger viewers, have only known app-based viewing. The legacy systems don't provide that user experience that people are looking for. Again, the ad insertion models, they're transitioning, and there's new opportunities to use data from the consumers and to target ads, but it's not fully mature. And the old systems, though they do offer monetization and they're helping, we need to be forward thinking in how we can play in the game with the dynamic ad insertion that's available. ISPs want to increase their broadband penetration, but they're hesitant on launching TV. And I get it, because there's not a whole lot of great stories around it, but it is super important now more than ever, because bundles, there used to be bundles and then they've been split apart and now they're coming back. And it's your opportunity as an ISP to reimagine what that bundle looks like and provide managed Wi-Fi along with TV and differentiate yourselves from your competitors. And the content rights is probably the biggest pain point we have heard and seen. I mean, quite frankly, some people would rather bang their head against the wall than have to do some of those negotiations. And there's some there's some things happening, and I'm optimistic that they're great with the National Association of Broadcasters and FCC. And I'm not here to dig into all those details, because if you find a partner that understands that, you don't need to understand that. But I'm just saying, I just want to plant the seed that because of some of the things going on at the FCC and with the National Association of Broadcasters, there's going to be opportunities to be on more of a level playing field than there has been historically. So again, it's your opportunity to consider getting into the business.
Thanks, Emily. And the other thing I would say is, on the technology side, one of the things we've seen is, particularly before, then these are some of the areas where you can no longer use those legacy TV solutions. So that's also a driver for change that either in the technology or in the ad insert that we're seeing as well.
Absolutely, yes.
Do some questions, and we'll have two questions through the session. First one really is to get a sense of who you are and what are your concerns. So systems, TV systems, transitioning from ad insert systems, content rights, complexity, or including TV in the bundle as an ISP. So perhaps you could fill in for the most part. And Emily, as we go through this, perhaps you could talk to us about what you expect to see as some of the results from the.
Yeah, you bet. So I'll be interested to see, because I definitely think content rights, even if you're not in the space, it is a big pain point and probably what inhibits people from wanting to get into the space. But at the same time, the transitioning from legacy systems, I think that can be a concern, knowing how to get there and how to get there with lower risk and possibly trying to lower the CapEx. So I think the transitioning from where you're at or even consider getting into the space along with the content rights will be the biggest pain point. So.
Okay, so we'll be interested to see that. I think it also depends on who the audience is. If the audience is more a group of people who are coming from a TV background, then I'm expecting to see A and B be more dominant. If it's an ISP group, then probably D. I'm also expecting C to be dominant right across the board because everybody, as you mentioned earlier, Emily, is scared of content rights. So I don't know if we're ready to see the results.
The suspense.
Okay. So interesting. Nobody is worried about ad insert transition at all. We've got quite a lot of people looking to introduce TV for the first time, which is interesting. And it looks like content rights obviously is important, but it's interesting that the content rights is not quite so dominant as we had expected. Perhaps because some of the folk in the bottom group haven't encountered content rights yet in the first instance.
Okay.
Okay. So let's step forwards a little bit. Then, Emily, do you want to talk a little bit about legacy TV?
Yeah, you bet. So why does legacy TV hold us back? And I like to compare it to who doesn't like shiny objects, right? And legacy TV is old and outdated, and broadband is then the biggest focus. And so because legacy TV doesn't have the feature functionality of Restart TV and Cloud DVR and the app-based viewing, it's definitely a hurdle to try to get a subscriber signed up this day and age with the technology and the viewing that they're used to having. So the viewer habits, again, as I mentioned, there's younger generation that has come up only knowing app-based viewing. And so legacy TV does not meet the mark for what they are expecting. And honestly, there's even some older demographics who may have been forced to going to app-based viewing just to save some money. And because they have historically been cheaper service offerings. So again, you've got more people that are used to the different viewing that legacy TV can't keep up with. And the operational drag of running the system, if you're an operator and you're running an antiquated, old, outdated system, and you have hardware fail and you may not have a spare, you're probably looking on eBay to replace it. And that's probably not going to be the best way to support a system for video. And along with that, as technology has changed, what we've learned is that the power consumption also changes with it. Because of the newer technologies, there's cost savings in going with the newer products on that front. There's also inefficiencies with the legacy systems. You can find efficiencies with the new technology vendors that you want to integrate with. You can share the APIs, but they're not going to go backwards because people are future thinking. And so there's the bottleneck on being able to find partners that will integrate with you if you have an old, outdated system. And again, the ad insertion is a big one. There are options. Ad insertion was the QAM, the scheduled, and then you can go with the linear parity, and that may require some extra expense for transcoding. And then the future is the dynamic ad insertion. So we want to be able to use the consumer data that's at our fingertips. We want to help them, and we also want to be able to monetize by advertising to them with that dynamic ad insertion. And then there's rights and packaging limits. If you have been in the space for many, many years, you probably were told you're going to take this channel, you got to take all of these other channels with it. And though you can't do whatever you want now, and it's definitely not a la carte, there's definitely national organizations like the NCTC that have been really good at trying to find ways to change lineups and help you be successful. And so if you have new systems and if you're launching new platforms, there is some opportunity and some wiggle room in changing some of those lineups that historically you have had very little control over doing.
Got it. So let's talk then a little bit about some of those issues that Emily's just walked through in terms of you've got this legacy system and you want to move from it. And we've seen on the technology side a number of different approaches for operators who are transitioning from legacy systems. The first one is, and this is perhaps the easiest in terms of low impact to consumers, is a cap and grow. You build a new system, you cap the old system, and then gradually you transition customers across from the old to the new. Now, the upside of that, as I'd mentioned, is it is the least disruptive to consumers. The challenge with that is it tends to be there's no time bound on it. And the challenge with that is if you're laying fiber and you don't want to do RF over fiber, then you don't know when you'll have all of your subscribers off your existing system. So the alternative is you actually have a phased cutover. You pick zone by zone or region by region or market by market, and you move all of those customers across. You maintain the same type of functionality, the same type of entitlements, but you move them to the new technology. That's a much more proactive engagement. It requires you to be much closer to your customers. It requires you to think much more carefully about the technology you're going to do, but it does allow you to be time bounded. And that time bounding allows you to deploy and leverage your new technologies and retire and turn off your legacy technology. So usually these are some of the bookends that we see from operators as they choose to transition. There are also considerations you need to have about your audience. So if you're looking at an audience that is more traditional, you're in a market where perhaps you have older people that are used to cable set-top boxes, then you may want to replicate that model in the IP domain with IP set-top boxes, with remote controls, with number buttons, and so on. Alternatively, if you're in the downtown area, you've got MDUs and you've got a much more modern audience, much more app-centric viewers, then you may want to go more with the app-based TV. And what we find is, depending on your demographics, you choose to bias one way or the other, or a hybrid mix in between. That also looks at, what do you do with your user experience? And one of the things on the technology side, again, we struggle with is getting a user experience that allows those traditional users to have something that they feel familiar with. It works the same way as their cable box used to, but also something that's very familiar to app-based users. So having a user interface that's consistent, but consistently allows traditional users and modern users to use the same interface in a consistent way, that's another consideration that I think is very important to make sure that that transition runs smoothly. Then from a success perspective, of course, it's your choice and you make your own decisions, but some of the things that work is if the service that came in the legacy system and the new system have the same features, functions, channels, the quality is the same. Perhaps, as Emily had mentioned in her previous conversation, the functionality is much improved. Perhaps you have network DVR allowing every device to access recorded content. Perhaps you have time shift allowing you to catch up on previously aired content. Then those are advantages, but you don't want to take away things that people are used to for the most part. And then finally, you want to make sure that when you do your transition, you can in fact retire your older systems and you're not stuck with maintaining two independent systems for the long run.
And one thing I'd just like to add quickly is the fact that there is an opportunity, if you have the head end and you're wanting to get out of it, to partner with another head end provider to feed both of your systems, allowing you to reallocate your talent internally to that transition. And it saves the money that could be put towards fast tracking that transition so you get to where you're looking to get to faster.
Got it. Thanks, Emily. And then another thought, we've talked a little bit about the transition of TV in general, but another thing, and I think Emily touched on this earlier, was ad insert transition. So of course, if you look at TV, there really are two primary revenue sources usually for operators. There's subscription revenue that comes from consumers, and there's ad revenue that comes from selling avails in your content. Most of the operators that we work with, particularly in the US market, are selling advertisements in the QAM domain, and even if they've got IP-based solutions, the ad is being inserted in the QAM domain. The QAM inserted signal is being forked. One goes to the legacy boxes, the other goes to the IP transcoders. So when it gets into the IP domain, the ad is already inserted in the signal. As you start to make that transition from legacy systems to IP-based delivery, then you need to start thinking about transitioning. Now, then kicks in another consideration, which is where's the money? At the minute, everybody's talking about dynamic and targeted, and that definitely has potential to have a lot more revenue coming from it. But the market is still in transition. So you've got to make sure as you make that transition, you don't suddenly jump from scheduled and spot ads to dynamic ads and find your revenue dips. What you got to think about is making sure you maintain your revenue and then grow your revenue incrementally. So what we've seen is, and I think Emily touched on this a little bit before, an evolution steps that start with legacy ad insert, which is spot and scheduled, moving to IP ad insert, following the same commercial model with spot and scheduled ads, then supplementing that with targeted and dynamic ads, and then eventually moving to fully dynamic and targeted ads. And what you're looking for really in terms of the revenue profile is your revenue profile grows and there are no unexpected dips in that. So these are some of the steps that we see as we do the ad insert transition. So I'm going to sort of, switch gears a little bit on the poll question and sort of say, and I know from the previous poll question, there were very few people mentioned about ad insert transition, but to ask the question to the audience, if you are inserting ads, are you inserting in a QAM domain? Are you already inserting in a spots or scheduled ads in an IP domain? Are you already doing targeted ads, or you just don't have anything to do with ads? And we'll give you a few minutes to comment on that.
So out of curiosity, Mick, what do you think is the poll results going to be for this one?
Well, to be fair, based on my experience, across multiple operators, I was actually probably saying that A would be a dominant number. But having looked at the previous poll, I'm now a little bit less sure of myself. Right. Perhaps it's the audience. I mean, certainly if you're an ISP, then probably you're not inserting ads at all. And right. The previous poll did sort of suggest that there were quite a number of ISPs or people who don't offer TV ads or TV services today in the audience or in the attendees. But certainly if you're looking at a group where you are offering existing TV services, I am expecting a lot of ad insert, despite the hype that we see at a lot of these conferences, is still done in a much more traditional way. And that is changing. So some may have moved to B or C, but I would have expected a lot at A.
Okay.
And we shall see now whether that works out. And okay, so there we go. So I think, the only comment I can make is I feel that this reflects perhaps some of the attendees and the audience, because Correct. If you're not inserting ads today, you're not taking revenue from ads today. So most likely you're either a very small operator or you're not in TV today. I'm not sure what you think, Emily, of the results.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that statement. And one thing I do think is noteworthy is there are opportunities, even if you're small, and it may not make sense to go partner with a Comcast, Charter, Via Media, ICANN, all of those providers out there. It may not make sense to do it alone, but I know at Whitepaw, with the 30 operators that we do represent, we've been able to zone things so that we can offer that benefit to an ISP that's just getting in, where there's an opportunity to do a rev share program. So if you're not doing it today and you're worried you're small, I just want people to be aware there's absolutely opportunities to still be able to play in that market and help monetize your offerings.
And it does look like there's lots of people who have the potential to take advantage from ad insert in this audience.
For sure. Okay,
so the next one area we wanted to touch on was really those ISPs, and it does sound like there could be quite a lot of that group in the audience. And ISPs really, why would you get into TV in the first instance? And some of the topics we've seen in the ISP space is really around penetration. If you're competing with an incumbent operator, particularly who offers TV, then there will be some percentage of your consumers that will want to have TV as part of the bundle. Otherwise, your take rate, or they won't take your service. So if your penetration rate of 30% and you want to move to 40 or 50, then you may want to look at this in terms of a focus. Emily, I know you've been looking at ISPs as well as part of your audience. What are you finding?
Yeah, I always joke because I work very closely with a consultant, and we're kind of like, oh, I don't know where video is going to go and if we're going to have a jobs. And honestly, there's more excitement and energy around getting into TV specifically by the ISPs today. Because like I said, people are looking to reimagine what that bundle looks like. And there are services that people want. TV, it hasn't died, it's transitioned. And it's your opportunity to use the investment you have in building out the broadband to ride that network to provide the service. And there's an opportunity amidst the hesitation of getting into it by partnering with other people like the Whitepaw Enghouse solution platform that we're going to talk a little bit about, and how we have created this offering allowing you to launch in 45 to 90 days, which historically would not have been possible. We're pre-integrated, we're operator focused. I know from Whitepaw's perspective, we're member owned and member driven. And so I'm having very good conversations, and a lot more conversations than I've ever had with ISPs that are seriously looking at this, because if things change and you're on more of a level playing field than you have been historically with price because of the conversations going on at the FCC level, now's the time to think about it. Don't wait. You don't want to be behind the 8 ball.
Got it. So we've sort of looked a little bit at ISPs, but what makes it hard for ISPs, Emily? I mean, I know you've touched on some of the topics, but what are some of the things as you talk to those ISPs they're really been struggling with?
Yeah. There's quite a bit they're struggling with. And even when some of them have come to me and said, okay, we want to do this, and I go through all of the pieces of the puzzle, it's like deer in the headlights and they're overwhelmed. And I don't share that to overwhelm them. I share that because I need to have those conversations, and it's very important that I'm transparent and I educate them on understanding the struggles of getting into the business. And so a lot of those have to do with the rights and availability. Where are you going to get your signals? What format do those signals need to be in? Like, you need to be thinking about that along with the blackouts that, how are you going to handle those? And not being in the business, what product and pricing is it going to be? What you don't want to do is lose money. You never want to get into this business to lose money. And there is an opportunity to even have margin. And so you want to keep in mind the lineup that you're going to offer in comparison to your competitors. As an example, YouTube dropped the regional sports network. You have the opportunity with your product, even if it's a little bit higher price, to keep that sports in the lineup, because live sports is actually one thing that's definitely keeping TV alive. So you also have the speed to launch. It can be a struggle if you're trying to do it on your own. And again, that's why partner. There are partners that can help you reduce that time. It doesn't need to take you 6 months to a year. You don't have to have the internal expertise in order to do it, because having that can be extremely overwhelming. And that can be part of the reasons why a lot of ISPs haven't gotten into the space today. You want to truly understand and know what your options are on the technical and operational side. Do you have a demographic that is older and they want the old remote because they don't know how to use the Roku or Amazon Fire remotes? And there's also an advantage of using the set-top boxes that are available with those remotes for troubleshooting. Is that something you want to create efficiencies operationally within your team? Or do you want to just get out of all proprietary equipment and just use the Roku, Amazon Fire? They're in most of everyone's homes anyway, and you just want to launch that way. So those are some things you've got to be thinking about. And then again, the ad insertion, we've talked a lot about that. You want to make sure that you're not losing money. If you've been in it, you want to make sure you keep that money, and then you transition. If you haven't, find opportunities to make sure you can make ad insertion available. And then the skills and risk piece, we have small teams, and it's overwhelming to think that we might need to figure out the expertise of launching TV, because it can be so overwhelming with all the pieces that go into it. So I would say those are definitely the biggest pain points that I've heard from the ISPs. But again, among challenges, there's opportunities.
Got it. Thanks. And what we're going to do at this point in the webinar is talk a little bit about some of the things we do, and we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, who is Enghouse, what's our participation in this, and then Emily will talk a little bit about Whitepaw. So from an Enghouse perspective, we're a technology provider. We provide technology for a number of different market segments relevant to FBA, including BSS and OSS. But we also have a pretty comprehensive media solutions a set of capabilities, and there our focus is on simple. What we try to do is really address TV. We understand that most of the members of Fiber Broadband Association are broadband first. So what we want to do is be able to bring technology that allows them to offer TV in a very simple way. And the mindset of working with Whitepaw is all part of that. How do we sort of bring the technology to those audiences, whether you're transitioning from legacy systems or whether you're an ISP entering TV for the first time? How do you make it as simple as possible? We think that you know, that matters because from an ad insert perspective, if you want to transition, you want to retain revenue. From an operational perspective, if you want to move from an older system to a newer system, you need to move to the newer system quickly and efficiently so that you can cut back and close down your legacy system. And part of that is speed and risk. How do you actually move? What are the proven playbooks, the pre-integrated solutions that allow you to move fairly quickly on TV without risks? Some of the proof points on our side, we have more than 60 TV, and they're using a pre-integrated solution, and that really allows you to get to market quickly and without risk. A sense of scaling. Those customers can scale from as low as 1,500 subscribers right up to over 1 million subscribers. So a very broad range of customers, including some of the smallest customers to some of the largest.
So I'll just quickly share a little bit about Whitepaw, and you may have recognized us more as Midwest Video Solutions before we had rebranded. But anyhow, Whitepaw has 5 owners, and we represent over 30 telcos. We have been in the video business since 2001, and we have experience in the cable TV, in the legacy cable systems that still exist today. But then we also have the IPTV solutions. We've been in that business for 20 plus years. We are member owned and member driven. We like to tout that we're more than just an operator. We actually say, you know, we're your video concierge, right? So we've got multiple buckets that we do offer services to, and we can be a transport provider, and we can drop the signals at your doorstep, and you can work with the national consortiums to take care of all of your contractual needs, and then you can find partners or you can do your own retransmission direct deals in-house. If you have your own affiliate distribution rights and you don't want to have to deal with that, we can take care of that for you as well. We also have the ability to empower you to provide a video service through your network to end users. And with that, you can be ISP TV powered by Whitepaw Solutions. So we have that option as well. And we are really a project and video consultant. We'll manage projects, we'll help you design your what you're trying to accomplish, and learn from you and make sure that we execute that accordingly.
Got it. Thanks, Emily. So if we now start a step forwards, I mean, having introduced the two of the various pieces of the solution. So for those of you that are familiar with TV solutions, essentially, let's start on the right-hand side and work to the left. On the right-hand side, you want to surface your TV to various consumers. You do that through clients, and those are some of the technology we bring to the table. And those clients can be running on set-top boxes, on mobile devices, it can be running on media players, or it can be running on smart TVs. If we move to the left then, there's also a set of capabilities that we sometimes call control plane or CMS functions. This is really about how you package your service here to the various content rules, how you protect the content, how you allow consumers access provisioned for individual consumers. And again, we have technology in that portion of it, which is the block at the top. The Whitepaw team then bring to the table the parts of this which are associated with the media plane itself. So taking in the signal, manipulating the signal, storing the signal, placing the signal on CDN so that it can be distributed very efficiently to all of those various clients. And all of this stuff is pre-integrated, ready to go, and wrapped in with, I've called it the white glove managed services, but really the Whitepaw team can package all of that and bring it to you in whatever way you would like to consume it. I don't know, Emily, if I missed that.
No, you covered everything great. And one thing I'll say is, what's so exciting about working with Enghouse is that our values align as organizations. And so we're within our core competency, our core business. We're letting each other do what we are experts at while creating this joint end-to-end solution.
Got it. And if we sort of talk about some of the TV services that are offered as part of this package, then you really have a solution that works for both residential consumers and bulk commercial consumers. Now, bulk commercial means everything from MDUs, doctors' offices, bars, restaurants, hospitals, universities, and other commercial facilities. The mix depends really on where you're located. It tends to be in more populated areas. There tends to be more requirement for bulk commercial, and in more rural areas, less of a requirement. But usually there's some need for bulk and commercial service meets, and we can serve both audiences. We provide the applications for set-top boxes, media players, mobile devices, smart TVs, web, and so on. And all of those platforms, if you think about the apps on your iPhone or your Android phone, they're always changing because Apple's always changing things, Google's always changing things, new devices, new operating systems. So all of those things are changing, and we maintain those players so that they'll work. Your app will work on all of those platforms all of the time. The service covers all of the typical TV features from live content, catch up, start over, MDVR, and we also provide the monetization capabilities with the ad solution. It also has engagement tools and especially as we go forwards, mechanisms that allow you as an operator to promote content to your consumers. So that could be promoting media content, live content, on-demand content, but it may also be about promoting your broadband services, your mobile services, your community involvement. So anything that you can promote, you've got a very, very large piece of real estate with a large TV in the home that you can use to promote services. So we have a solution feature set that we think is very rich and also very forward-looking. And Emily, perhaps you want to just sort of talk about the values of the solution?
Yeah, you bet. So because of the solution and the partnership coming together here, we have an end-to-end. We can do everything from soup to nuts, or we can do bits and pieces of the puzzle. So really you're in control, but we have the ability to be flexible, to adapt, and to meet whatever needs you're looking for. And with this solution, Whitepaw becomes that one throat to choke. So if you're having issues, you're going to reach out to our team, and we're going to, because of all of the pieces we're managing through the technology partners that you may or may not even know about, we're going to, and because we deal with 30 other operators, we have a very good understanding when we see issues, what they might be. So if something happens and we need to investigate that, we're going to bring the proper partners to the table, and we're going to have you have a seat at the table. We'll be very transparent, and we're going to work through all of that. So with this solution, you're not having to figure out who you need to go to for what. Whitepaw is going to be that provider of the entire solution if you want it. And as we say, we try to provide that white glove service.
Got it. So with that solution, then, you know, if you're an ISP, you can launch TV rapidly. If you're an existing operator, you can transition seamlessly. If you're doing ad insert, you can maintain and grow the ad insert revenue. And the overall sort of bundle solution really is about simplicity. It's making TV simple. It's making it so that you as a broadband provider don't have to think about it. You can add it in, it creates the stickiness, the attraction, but it's not something that you have to worry about, either in terms of time to market, commercial risk, technical risk. It's all sort of bound down, very well understood, and hopefully something that you can take advantage of very quickly.
Yep. So
making TV easy. Do you want to talk us through the playbook?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're here to help you do, is make it easy and get you excited about it like we are. So you want to figure out what content you want and at what cost in order to be competitive in your market. And you know, that's not a one size fits all. Again, going back to YouTube, they dropped regional sports networks. You can differentiate yourself by including those channels because maybe the people in your market want those. And it might come as a higher cost, but they're willing to pay for it because they don't have it through their other providers. You can also differentiate yourselves with community local content. That's a huge differentiator, and we can help you with that. Plan the cutover. That's key. Know who and what you're trying to meet, what you're trying to accomplish. Do you want to do it by exchange? Do you want to do the cap and grow? You know, that's another key piece that you really have to understand and figure out what your expectation is there. And then you want to protect and grow your ad revenue. You want to keep the ad insertion revenue coming in you have today while focusing on how you're going to compete with the dynamic ad insertion as that continues to mature. And go hosted and managed. I mean, you don't need to bear the burden of everything that goes into offering video. You can offload that and make it as simple as possible. Nobody needs any more complexity in their lives. So yeah.
Good. Thanks, Emily. Now we've gone through quite a bit in the presentational material today, but there are also a number of resources that are available. Some of them are presented here with QR codes linking to them. And I believe they're also available in the resource section on the tool platform. So certainly we've got some capabilities around launching IPTV services in the North American market. We've got some detailed capabilities around operator TV, which is intended to focus on people who are actually network operators offering TV services. And then we've got some focus on advanced advertisements and how you handle the advertisement and maintain your revenues. So please feel free to reach out and review those resources and follow up. At this point, we'd like to move to a Q&A section, and we're certainly, Emily and I will do our level best to try to answer any questions that you may have. So perhaps I could hand it back to the moderator to see if there are any questions.
There are indeed questions. The first one I think probably goes to Mick. What's the typical monthly cost per end user customer just to get basic cable channels and local channels? Is that possible to be answered?
It is possible to answer, but without knowing a little bit more about the questioner, it's not easy to give a specific number. There are a couple of considerations. So one of the things that Emily talked about previously was content rights and actually how do you create a package that is efficient and effective in your market. So what I'd maybe ask, Emily has a lot of experience, I think, in sort of right-sizing the package both for the competitive environment, because it doesn't help if you have a very skinny bundle but it's not competitive. And obviously it doesn't help if you've a very massive bundle and it's not cost competitive. So maybe, Emily, you could also take a little bit of a response here to this question, just talking about your experience of right-sizing the content bundle given the market that the customer is going after.
Yeah, again, I mean, it's not a one size fits all, and I can't really share any of the economics of what a package might look like, but there's definitely, when you really understand what you're hoping to accomplish, and again, I'm going to go back to the fact that YouTube doesn't have regional sports, and I think that live sports and that's on the regional sports along with the local broadcast stations is something that is driving viewership. So I think that including that for sure is something. I also want to take the opportunity to state how MDUs is truly a path forward for growth, and you can do more have more flexibility with those packages and the rates at a discounted rate because of the MDU facility guaranteeing, the programmer's revenue for every unit, whether there's somebody in there or not. And so there's opportunities to have different lineups for the MDU. And I'm going to recommend that you probably consider the regional sports network and the local broadcast stations as being part of your package, regardless, because of the live sports that are available on those nets.
Great.
So I think, to sort of summarize, I think, we certainly, Emily and I will be available after the presentation to follow up on those, and it will depend on your market and what you're doing. But I know that Emily and her team have a lot of experience really right-sizing those packages for the various markets, and also giving you very, very good advice and guidance as to how to build a compelling package given your competitive environment.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mick. Thanks, Emily. I think the next question is pointed to Mick again. What are some of the challenges you have with transitioning customers from a legacy system?
There are quite a lot of them. I touched a little bit on some of the challenges earlier. So, and I think it really comes down to what's the motivation and what's the objective. So, some of the challenges really is about the pace of change. Because what I see, especially with a broadband-centric audience, is you are actually deploying perhaps fiber networks. You don't want to put RF over fiber, so you're now looking at a legacy system that plain won't work as you deploy fiber, or if you're doing DOCSIS 4.0 or some other technology. So there are drivers associated with your network evolution that are actually saying the legacy technologies may no longer work at all in terms of serving services. So one of the things then with that in mind is how do I migrate my customers fairly quickly but without churn? Because obviously we don't want customers to find that they've lost the service, that they feel you've been unfair to them, and they churn to an alternative provider. So some of the considerations in that context of relatively fast change driven primarily by broadband network updates is to look at strategies of how do I make that change seamless? How do I make that change painless? And some of the things we've seen looking at the user experience, how do I have a UX that allows the IP-based delivery or the OTT-based delivery to be same as the cable box? The behavior is the same as the cable box. So there's a familiar, I've moved, but actually it's a new technology, it's a new box, but it's the same. There's also a little bit of that set-top box to set-top box, remote control with number buttons to remote control with number buttons. That's also part of making sure as that person transitions, there's an expectation that they'll meet the same service and exceed the same service that they were previously on. So those are perhaps some of the things that are challenges. If you are unsuccessful or you don't have a strategy to move across in a relatively short period, serving your customers over new broadband technology, and you also end up with a duplicate system that you can't retire, and you end up having the cost of running those two systems in parallel. So,
okay, great. Emily, I think this one may be up your alley. Can you describe the benefits of a fully hosted offer like the one Whitepaw provides?
Absolutely. The big benefits is it's lower risk. If you're going to get into video, you don't have to figure all of the pieces out, and there's a lower capex because of the solution that we have made available. It allows you as well to reallocate talent to other parts of the organization and focus on other things that you want to focus on without having to deal with the headaches. And because of all of the operators and partners that we bring together, learning from them with this platform and being able to share and finding synergies and resources and best practices is a huge part of how we do business. So I think that's also part of the benefit of a solution such as this.
Great. We did get a request. How can we see a demo of the video solution?
Oh, well, that's easy enough. Just reach out to Mick or myself and we can absolutely make that happen.
I think we've got some contact details on the screen at the moment. So certainly, if you reach out to either Emily or I, then we'll certainly ensure that you can get to see a demo.
Fantastic. Thank you both. Mick, what pitfalls do operators hit when moving to dynamic or targeted ads, and how do you avoid those?
Advertisement is, if you go to the trade shows, everything is 100% dynamic and targeted today. And if you look at the internet, it is dynamic and targeted. I mean, if you're in your house and you start talking about flower arrangements, then your Facebook feed is filled with flower arrangement advertisements for the next 3 days. So the internet is completely targeted. TV is not targeted today. It's very typically scheduled ads. An advertiser will advertise on channel 13 on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. and for a 30-second ad, and that's the way ads are bought and sold today. So one of the things that happens as you migrate from legacy systems to IP systems is you need to be aware of that jump. The advantage of targeted ads is if you're an audience that is willing to give you a good response, then that ad has a high degree of value. But if you jump to that and you don't have the revenue profile coming from it, then you'll see a revenue dip. So you've got to try to manage it so that you're able to serve your current customers, serve your new customers, and ensure your revenue profile is flat or increasing.
Great. Thank you so much, Mick. I think this one goes to Emily. For first-time TV launches, what does a starter content bundle look like? Including, national plus local plus catch-up, that's competitive and margin positive.
Again, I'm going to go back to, it's not one size fits all. It's really digging in and understanding the subscriber base that you're providing signal to. I definitely think feature rich, like 72-hour look back, restart TV, as many of the features that are available is something you want to offer. And I wholeheartedly believe that community content is something that you want to include in order to differentiate yourselves from your competitors. And I know it can be a headache and people don't want to necessarily have to worry about that, but there's options. And I am not legal counsel, but I do know, like from my own kids playing sports, there's like huddle cameras and there's live barn cameras. And I feel like there's solutions out there to access that, those feeds somehow, to put those on your platforms. And so you want the national channels and you want your local broadcast stations. I would recommend you want as many features, and then you want that local community content to differentiate yourselves, for sure.
Great. Here's a question. Are sports what is saving traditional broadcast television? If so, how long until streaming platforms catch up and offer a sports solution that offers a coup de grace unto traditional TV? Coup de grace.
I think that's a good question. I don't know that sports is saving traditional broadcast. I think that sports has complicated all viewers beyond measure as they have tried to figure out how they can watch certain sports. Like Peacock will have certain sports that you have to have the Peacock app for, right? And then you've got Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. And so there is so much complexity to everybody wanting sports rights and getting their hands in it, that it's just created so much confusion and frustration for the viewers because they can't get it on one platform. So I don't know. I know I'm in this business and you might think I'm crazy, but I feel like at some point we need to simplify that piece of it. And maybe there's a re-aggregation of de-aggregated content. And we're going to figure out how we can basically recreate where there's a platform that all of those rights exist under. So that would be I would love to see it, I should say. That would be my goal, but I don't know if we're going to get there or not.
As a college football fan, I would love that. So.
Right.
Mick, question here to you. If you're on legacy QAM today, what's the lowest risk first step to reach IP party without without disturbing ad ops? And what's a realistic timeline?
Okay, so this is an advertisement question. This one, if I've understood the question correctly, it's really asking to move ad insert from a cable plant to an IP plant. And I think the lowest risk, I mean, this is something that it depends on the customer, it depends on the ad selling. But what we have seen is a lot of this is migrate with the same business model, meaning you're selling to the same advertisers, to the same advertisement gas charter, or you're doing direct sales yourself. You're selling, for the most part, scheduled ads, spots in the live content. So when you move from QAM to IP, if you can replicate that, that is usually the way in which you maintain the revenue, make sure that you don't see any dips in revenue. You're still offering your advertisers exactly the same service. Then you can start to supplement that with targeted ads, dynamic ads, and then you can move more gradually to a full 100% dynamic targeted ad environment. So very hard to say one size fits all, but the first step usually that you have in QAM domain in the IP domain with scheduled ads or spots.
Okay, great. Well, it's time for questions to close. If you didn't get your question answered, Mick or Emily will reach back out to you. I want to thank both of those folks and Enghouse Networks and Whitepaw Solutions for presenting today. Before we wrap up, just a few quick FBA announcements. Our next Regional Fiber Connect will take place on October 16th in Scottsdale, Arizona, followed by Kansas City, Missouri on November 11th. If you are anywhere local to those, please join us. You can follow the link in the resources tool for more information and registration details. We also have, let me see, to learn about upcoming webinars, you can scan the QR code on the screen and navigate to the events section of the FBA website. We do hope everyone joins us for Fiber for Breakfast, featuring FBA President and CEO Gary Bolton. These are live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern, and past episodes are available on YouTube and SoundCloud. So thank you, Mick. Thank you, Emily. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And we look forward to working with you in the future. So thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.